All right, so I'm Kunal, and I'm a Senior Vice President of Product Management. Sumedh, my boss, says that I lead all of the revenue-generating products at Qualys. Yes? No? Okay. Maybe. All right. So, and if you are looking for a guy who appeared in Sumedh's keynote story, who had a credit card breach over a weekend, that's me. That was me who appeared in his story. This is the second time in a row that appeared in his story. Today, I'm going to talk about vulnerability management, risk-based vulnerability management, and how you can turbocharge your RBVM with a natively integrated attack surface management and the risk reduction plan. All right, and then in the end, I'm going to give you the demo. First, before we do that, I know some of these challenges you live, breathe through every single day, but quickly recapping, couple of things. First, attack surface is always expanding. You have a different siloed tool for a vulnerability management, one for cloud, one for container, one for on-prem data center, one for OT, one for IoT. And the threat landscape, attackers are always ahead of the game. If you look at some of the data that is done by our own threat research unit team, last year alone, we had about 40,000 CVs, and only 0.61% have been weaponized. They had exploit code. If you look at the CISA CAV catalog, only 0.48%, close to 0.5%, have been actively exploited. So what does that mean? That means that most vulnerabilities don't get exploited. What does that mean? You really need to focus on what matters. That's just the 0.5%. Before I show you how with our VMDR and the CSAM you get to that, another data point, on an average it takes about 30.6 days to remediate, and it's about 19.5 days time to weaponize, looking into all of the data that we have. So attackers still have a 11 days advantage. And even if you look at the NCSC guideline for remediation, there is a 5 days for the external and about 14 days for the internal. So always there is a race. How do we solve it? What do we need to do? 3 simple steps. 1, you need to find your entire attack surface, internal, external, cloud, on-prem, OT, IoT, everything. Second, you need to enrich the attack surface with all of the context and prioritize with a real-time threat intel. And third, you need to orchestrate and remediate and respond to the risk. Very 3 simple steps. No rocket science, right? So let's start with first one, attack surface. How does Qualys helps you in finding your entire attack surface? 1, with the agent, sensor, cloud agent passive sensor technology that you have already deployed in your environment, we can find all of your internal, known, unknown, raw, forgotten assets. We can connect to your ServiceNow CMDB, BMC Helix CMDB. We can connect with your cloud environment with a free cloud connector, which are part of our VMDR. And we can get all of your assets. Second, you want to see also your digital footprint with our external attack surface management, which is part of our CSAM. We are crawling on the internet. We are finding all of your domains, subdomain, APIs, web services, everything on the internet. Then we also monitor the risk for your subsidiaries, your merger and acquisitions, third party. So we find anything and everything that is on the internet. And finally, we give you all of the risk that is there and expose on the internet, which is your exploitable vulnerability, your unsanctioned open ports on the internet, and the weak certificate and everything. End of life, end of service, all of the risk indicator. Now here is the thing. When it comes to the risk, cyber risk is beyond vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities is just one of the risk factor. But what if you had a critical assets running the end of life, end of service software, operating system? What if you had a risky or unauthorized ports that are exposed on the internet, which are part of your critical environment? What if you have a missing security control like EDR, antivirus, DLP, zero trust, which strengthen the security posture, and what if you are missing on that? And what if you have unauthorized, unapproved software running in your environment? All of this should contribute towards the risk. Risk is beyond vulnerabilities, right? After we add all of this context, we further add additional context about who owns this asset. Is it finance department? Is it a development team? Is it R&D team? Where is it located? It's production, pre-production, PCI zone. We also tell you what is the business criticality of these assets and many other interesting contexts. Once we discover your entire attack surface, internal, external, cloud, on-prem, OT, IoT, everything, then we enrich with a real-time threat indicator, with a business context, with the additional risk insights that I said, end of life, end of service, unauthorized software, unapproved ports. All of that we add together and we help you with a risk visualization of your environment. Then you prioritize them. Now here is the slide that morning Shailesh showed you, and I tweak it a little bit further. So assume you have done a good job with the patching, and if you use a CVSS score or any of the single criteria to patch things, you may reduce your risk score from XYZ to 400. But with our true risk score, we account for a lot many interesting factors, whether there is the ransomware, malware associated, is there any exploit code associated, and we enrich all of this with a real-time threat indicator. So now you see when you add all of this, the risk score increases actually. And now it is no longer a 400 because you look at it, the additional risk vector, that's where the risk score is more. Now we have seen that many, as you are building your risk operation center, you may want to take some of the inspiration from your SOC team, security operation team. And the security operation team, they always talk the MITRE attack framework language when it comes to the prioritizing, looking for the threats. So we got it one, MITRE attack-based prioritization that you can use, where we correlate all of the risk indicator, misconfiguration, vulnerability, real-time exploit, and everything, and we show you the way that you can prioritize with that. Second, we also got AI and ML, but we are more focusing on driving the outcome for you rather than using the buzzword like AI and ML, right? So what we do, our true risk is powered with a lot of deep learning and AI techniques. We also use a threat detection by looking into your network traffic. This is again a deep learning and AI base. We also do the asset criticality detection. So we analyze your data, we understand about your assets, and if you have given an asset criticality which is lower than what we believe, then we give you the recommendation. And we are not changing it directly without your approval. You have an option to review those asset criticality recommendation that is given by our own AI engine. And we also give you the incident investigation and workflow powered by our AI, where we use a Mistral AI and the Llama 3B and other model. Finally, as Sumedh says, right, knowledge of a risk doesn't make you safer. Finally, you have to remediate, you have to reduce the risk, right? So how do we do it? And we call it as a remediation buffet. You can have a salad, you can have a main course, you can have a dessert, whatever you want. You can patch it, you can mitigate it where you cannot patch it. You want to fire some custom scripts to reduce the risk. You want to isolate the machine. You want to isolate a suspicious app on the machine. You could do anything and everything. You can granular control over this. One-click workflow with our Qflow. Sorry, before that, we have a one-click workflow where you can discover and add all of your EASM assets into the VMDR, all of your web assets, and launch into our VAS scan. And you can create tickets. You can find the owners to fix the issue. If you don't have a right owner identified, who is going to fix the issue? We can keep generating more issues, but then you need owners who are going to fix the issue. And finally, we also have a Qflow, which is a low-code, no-code tool where you could write any customization. You can create any orchestration workflow with your ServiceNow, Jira, ITSM ticketing tool and assign it to the right owner. Finally, delivering the business outcome with our attack surface integrated with your RBVM, we are able to help you reduce your mean time to discovery from 30 days to 2 days. We help you improve your asset coverage. On an average, our customers generally have a 50 to 70% coverage as a part of their VM program. And with our attack surface natively integrated, now you got a near 100% coverage for your VM program, so you are always compliant. And obviously, mean time to remediate with our Eliminate, True Risk Eliminate, it helps you stay compliant with your NCSC guidelines. So with that said, let me turn to the demo Can we switch to the demo, please? All right, so let's start with attack surface. It's all about first finding everything that you have. All right, so let's start with the dashboard. You see your global attack surface dashboard for all of your subsidiaries, your external attack surface, all of your different business unit, for your geography and everything. Now, but before you do that, before you build the dashboard, how are you going to customize that what you want to discover? You need a full granular control where you can decide how you want to and what kind of assets you want to bring into your VM program and what kind of things that you want to exclude. So as a part of this, let me show you, start with external attack surface, where you can provide a configuration setting. This is a one-time setting where you can just start with your top-level domain name. You can include, you can exclude different things. You want to add any of your subsidiaries. You want to exclude, let's say, for example, you are in UK and doing the risk management for a different country is not part of that. You can remove it. We also introduced the new capability with a typo-squatted domain. In case if you want to discover all of your typo-squatted domain, all you have to do is just checkbox, and then we will discover a lookalike domain, the typo-squatted domain for you automatically. Now, once we do that, and as you see here, now with our external attack surface monitoring, you can create a different configuration profile for monitoring the different subsidiaries. Up to 20 subsidiaries you can monitor with a different profile. So in that way, data is not mixed. You have a subsidiary in US, subsidiary in somewhere in Europe, somewhere in India. You could create a different profile, so everything remains separate. Right now, let's see how quickly we are able to help you navigate into the risk and how you can see the additional contextual information about the external assets that we have just discovered. So here are the 3,000 assets. Now you see the one, all the newly discovered assets that are not part of your VM program, we mark them as unmanaged. Now when it comes to the contextual detail, we give you all of the information about this asset on how we discover, how did we crawl on the internet, which kind of a domain, DNS lookup, subsidiary lookup that we have done to find this asset. And you can see the DNS data. And then we added, or we also got a feedback from you last year that you needed a more DNS coverage so that we can find localized assets in your environment. So now we support up to 4 different DNS, and we are adding more and more support to help you there as well, based on the feedback that we received. So now, as you can see, now let's get into the who is data, like who owns this asset, who has registered this asset in their environment. All of this information is readily available for you to prioritize. Now let's quickly look into those assets. Web application, all of your web assets, all of your risky ports, vulnerabilities, domains, subdomain. And by the way, I also want to tell you that as a part of our external attack surface discovery, we are now finding your exposed APIs on the internet. Along with your web application, web servers, web port, we are also finding the APIs that are exposed on the internet, because many of the breaches are happening with the APIs that are exposed outside. So we do that as well. Now here is the typo-squatted domain, very interesting features that last year all of you had told us. So now you see with Qualys.com, you see a lot of typo-squatted domain here. But then when you look into the who is data, you can quickly figure it out that this domain was not owned by Qualys. Somebody else had hosted. Now you want to see, do the broader search. If the attacker have hosted any phishing domain which look like a Qualys, then you can further filter, and you can see now the Qualys Guard domain, another one that you can see registered by some different organization. Now you can work with your domain hosting team and work with them to bring down, and also, as you saw, that you can group those domain into the different category as well. Now you see one, like your lookalike domain are registered in this different country. One of them is registered in China. Now this is a very local geographic domain that somebody has registered there, as you can see. So you can find out all of this external attack surface detail for your organization. And finally, you wanted to bring all of these assets into your VM program. So we have a rules that you can write it, that any assets with a higher risk score, you want to add it to the VM scan. With a few clicks, you are able to type any query that every day we find the new assets, you want to get it into this. You can activate the vulnerability scanning, policy compliance scanning, and all of that is here. So now you are always discovering everything and scanning everything and adding it to part of your VM and TC program. Now, another one that I wanted to show you is the cloud agent passive sensor discovery. So while external attack surface is important, but internal attack surface is equally important. And with our cloud agent passive sensor that you see, only one agent that you deploy in your environment, it is listening into your network traffic and finding raw assets which are part of your environment. So first external, then the internal, and then you can bring those as well as a part of your scanning program. So you have a full 100% coverage, right? Same way you can activate those internal unknown potential raw assets into your environment as well. I'll try to quickly wrap up the demo so that others get equal time. Another thing that I want to show you was the risk calculation, right? And when we quantify the risk, we give you all of the different risk vectors. So you see attack surface for your external, internal, look into those total 21 different assets. And now, as I said, we enrich the vulnerabilities with a lot of interesting data. As you see here, risk calculation plus unauthorized port, end of support, missing software, all of the details are accounted. And you see how we are calculating the QDS score with a CVSS score, and then we additionally, if you are only doing the prioritization based on the CVSS score, then you are only looking into the 2 parameter. But then with our thing, we show you the POCs and malware detail and other information as well. So we enrich with a lot more interesting data for you. As you can see here, end of support and all of that information. Charlie, 1 minute, I'm finishing, please. And here is the threat intel part, which is very interesting, where we enrich all of the CVs with the 20+ real-time indicator. And this is where it becomes game-changing. If you are just looking into the CVSS base, look at this. Here the score is 65 based on here is the low score that Qualys is giving, though CVS is giving higher score. EPSS score is high, but Qualys says it's low because there is no exploit available. There is no POC. Right now, look at the other example where we enrich this with the additional information. Here in this case, you see the CVSS score is low, but then the Qualys added with all of the threat indicator. So that's where we are showing you that there is exploit available and other things. So that's why the risk score needs to be higher. And finally, I think Iran has already showed this, so I'm going to pause here and give opportunity to Anu and others. But this is how you can eliminate your risk by doing the patch, or you can apply the mitigation if you cannot patch it. Everything is built in, natively integrated. So remember, we talk about 3 things. How you could turbocharge your risk-based vulnerability management program with the step 1 of discovering your entire attack surface, internal, external, cloud, on-prem, OT, IoT. Then enriching with the real-time threat indicator with the additional vulnerability context, business context, and finally, remediating the risk. With that said, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for that 15 minutes. Too many products you've got. So we need to get you a watch for your birthday. So thank you very much. We're going to now welcome on Anu Kapil, who is the Senior Product Manager for our compliance tools, and is going to talk about how we're looking at DORA. Thank you very much.
Is it? Can you upload the presentation? The presentation is not uploaded. Hello everyone, I'm Anu Kapil. I'm the Senior Product Manager here at Qualys for Policy Compliance, that is now Policy Audit. So how do you know you are audit ready? Can you answer that question if somebody asks that, how much percentage of audit readiness do you have for any of the compliance framework? Wouldn't it be nice to know how audit ready you are with respect to any framework, any set of systems, across your business units. Now, the most common challenges that EU faces, as per one of the reports done by Ascent and Audit Board, the most common challenges that came across were that 45% of the organizations have challenges while maintaining compliance and being audit ready. 43% of the organizations are still juggling with the multiple complex regulatory challenges and evolving requirements of all of the mandates. And 47% are still facing challenges with resources, manual tool, processes, data silos. And these are not the challenges just with EU, but these are the challenges across the globe for all of the organizations. Now, one of the most new common challenge with respect to getting audit ready is the audit complexity. Now, as regulatory requirements continue to increase, staying audit ready is more challenging than ever. The number one challenge that organizations face over here is changing requirements, being ready for DORA, NIS2, PCI 4.0 that keeps on changing. And at the same time, now, these requirements want you to have a continuous risk assessment as well. Compliance is no longer a checkbox. Organizations have to be audit ready. They have to prove that their controls and policies are in place continuously. Audits are no longer periodic checks. And failing an audit can lead to reputation damage, financial loss, and reputation damage, as well as bring the business to a standstill. It can be threatening for any enterprise. That's why compliance and audit is now a business enabler. And the last challenge that organization faces is regarding the manual processes. Most of the companies still leverages screenshots and spreadsheets, and they use manual work to keep up with the audit. When the auditor comes, while they are trying to get all the evidences in place, there are a lot of manual efforts involved, human error, which can lead to audit failures. Now, since most of the enterprises have at least 5+ audit requirements, and while if you are working with manual processes and trying to be audit ready for one, as soon as you complete it for one audit, you have to start doing all the steps for the next audit. That means organizations are in continuous audit mode. Now, as per the data that we have seen across EMEA region from our data insights, 40% of the failures are on Windows endpoints, databases, middlewares, and these can lead to security gaps for your compliance efforts as well as audit readiness. 70% are for the ransomware policies and ransomware gaps, which can lead for exploitation of critical path for lateral movements and remote exploitation. And on top of that, 60% of the gaps are in identity, authentication, and privileges. Fixing these key gaps are the key here, like weak passwords and unsecured remote access. Now, to solve all these challenges and being continuously audit ready, we are introducing policy audit. Now, what policy audit provides is that it helps organizations being continuously audit ready by mapping the data to various requirements, continuous evidence collection from single data source, and proactively providing the gap analysis. It helps organization not to scramble last minute with the manual effort and human resources to provide the reports to auditors and being audit ready. At the same time, when you have a lot of control failures, it provides a means for you to prioritize your control failures based on the QDS scores and other risk criteria. With seamless onboarding and streamlining the audit operation, you can send the data directly to ITSM, JIRA integrations, and close the gap between IT and security teams. And at the same time, it can help you to provide the audit-ready reports for more than 5+ mandates. As of today, policy audit supports 1,200+ policies, 90+ frameworks across the globe, so that organizations are continuously audit-ready and minimize any audit failures. Now, regulatory mandates requires continuous audit readiness. With continuous evidence collection, policy audit helps customers getting the data from single data source, providing the means to map it, have a single medium to see how audit ready you are with the help of unified widgets, dashboards, and executive reports. All your data is in one place from a single source, and you can be ahead of the game by providing those reports to auditor for on-demand or custom reports. At the same time, with proactive gap analysis, you have your gaps in place which you can fix before the audit even starts, so there are no last-minute surprises, and you don't have to scramble around to know what your gaps are, where is the evidence, how do you map it to the reports. Now, once you have your data collected, there may be a lot of control failures. Now, a lot of our customers keep asking what to prioritize, how to start. Should they look at prioritizing from CIS benchmarks or the controls, the criticalities? To solve all these challenges, we are introducing a QDS, that is the Qualys detection score for each of the controls that is calculated based on control criticality, ransomware, MITRE, asset exposure, threat exposure, and multiple other factors. This intelligent algorithm takes into account all these factors and provides you an individual QDS score for every control, which you can leverage to start with your prioritization efforts and prioritize the compliance gap based on audit findings and reduce exposure to any of the regulatory fines. Streamlining the audit operations is critically important while you are trying to be audit ready. You need to have automated audit workflows and send in the data to various data lakes or to ServiceNow or Jira, and Policy Audit today integrates with ServiceNow, where you can send in all your data directly into ServiceNow through the Posture APIs, create the ticket, assign it to right teams, create exceptions, SLAs, and directly make the process even more efficient. With the mapping of 90+ framework that Policy Audit has today, you can generate audit-ready reports for all of these frameworks, whether it's DORA, NIS2, UK Cyber Essential, PCI, or any of the globally mentioned mandates. We have mapped all of the controls and policies in library to these frameworks so that these reports are so detailed that you can provide it to your auditors as it is, and auditors love these reports. These reports also contain some AI recommendations and insights which you can leverage to prioritize your remediation efforts. We are also introducing the new Executive Audit Readiness Report, which is actually going to provide you how audit ready you are. You could select any of the framework, any business tags, units, and you will know what is the scope of your organization, how audit ready you are at that point of time. This report will summarize how well your organizations align with those frameworks, and it's going to provide various insights, pro tips, and recommendations to fix any audit gaps and improve your entire audit readiness score. We are also introducing the custom checks ability into Policy Audit. So most of the regulatory mandates, which keeps on evolving, have a lot of custom requirements. So with custom checks, now you can create your own custom controls, custom QIDs, script-based UDCs to ensure that those controls that are proprietary information, and you could create your own controls with the ability of creating that through custom CIDs. And with that, you can ensure that you reduce the risk of emerging threats and closing all your compliance gap proactively. Now, a lot of our customers are also using SCA. As we know, SCA just provides the ability for you to scan, download, and report on CIS benchmark. However, you also need a way to prioritize, respond, and report. Yeah, so with Policy Audit, you can do more than that. You have the entire exception management workflows. You can know what compliance assets are in scope for your next compliance requirement. It has the ability to auto-discover your middleware, databases, or any of running technologies in your environment, allowing the ability to map that to 90+ frameworks and create those custom policies, custom checks in place for the evolving regulatory mandates. It also provides you the exception management workflows with automated remediation workflows to ensure that you're always compliant and audit ready. Now, we are also introducing Audit Fix. That is the new ability within policy, on top of Policy Audit or SCA that you can leverage to automate the remediation workflow. With these, users can leverage the out-of-box and predefined library of CIS-based scripts within Audit Fix and leverage them to create their remediation job, whether it's on-demand or custom jobs that you can leverage to fix your audit findings, and you can customize those remediation scripts and eventually effectively and quickly close those audit gaps. Now we'll switch to the demo. Can we switch to the demo? No, I don't see that. All right. So in this demo, we are going to show how you can be audit ready for DORA. So for instance, a user wants to know how audit ready they are for DORA. You could do that for PCI, NIST, to UK Cyber Essential, or any of those custom frameworks that you would require. Now, when you log into your asset inventory, you will see a notification that shows that there are not a lot of users have confidence, which is based on our data insights internally, that they lack the confidence that they are audit ready for DORA. And at the same time, they have failed their dry run audits, which is up to 94% of those users. So let's say when you want to know that, you create your own audit readiness report. This audit readiness report is going to provide you summary of how audit ready you are. Here, this shows that you are at this point of state 55% audit ready with some of your critical controls failing on those critical assets, with insights on to which articles and which requirements you are failing, what are your gaps, what you need to fix, with the top failing controls. Now, this is very important here because this slide is actually showing you that you can improve your DORA or any framework audit readiness percentage, X percentage, by fixing these 9 controls. So with fixing these minimum controls, you will have the maximum impact because you're going to increase your audit readiness score by 35%. At the same time, it's going to provide the insights of the total failed controls by criticality. If you prioritize just these critical controls, it's going to increase your audit readiness by 75%. And as any of the framework and nowadays all of the regulatory mandates require you to assess all of your compliance, all of your assets that are in scope for compliance. So this is going to tell you exactly how many of your assets, whether it's network devices, databases, middleware, operating system, how compliant they are, what is their audit readiness score, and how many of them are not even activated or scanning for policy audit, which auditors might come and ask you to show the evidences that you are collecting for those particular assets. In this, it's going to show you what's your asset criticality, if you prioritize these critical assets, and how you can increase your score from 55 to 85% if you just fix your critical assets that were shown on the prior page. So this is really important because with just fixing these controls, you are going to increase your audit readiness score from 55 to 85%. I did meet a lot of customers yesterday, and I found that 2 of the customers just recently failed their DORA audit. So wouldn't it have been nice if they had this report? They would have known already before the audit even started what their audit readiness is. Do they have the evidences? Do they have the reports ready? How they could increase the score, show it to their internal stakeholders, prioritize those controls, and be audit ready. Now, once you have this report, let's say how you can activate and leverage and operationalize policy audit today. So with this three-step onboarding process, you just need to select your framework, technologies, set the priority of benchmarks, and we are going to do all the hard work of downloading the policies. We recommend, based on the industry and regions, which frameworks are applicable. You have the ability to customize those frameworks. Once you have made the selection, you just need to enable the technologies which we already get from your asset inventory. So you don't need to know what assets are running, what technologies are running, because we automatically pull that information from asset inventory and show you what technologies are there. Once you have made the selection based on your license and agents discovered, we are going to enable those agents for you and eliminate those manual steps which were earlier in place. Then you have to select your priority of the benchmarks, whether it's CIS, DORA, or Qualys policy, and move on to the next step. That's all. Once you have made this three-step selection, we are going to activate the agents for you, create those system-based tags, auto-download the policies for you, and create your new audit readiness dashboard ready for you without the need of any more manual resources. Earlier, with policy compliance, it used to take months to operationalize policies, get all your assets, but now it can be done within days. Once your audit dashboard is ready, you can quickly have a glance of what your overall audit readiness looks like, as well as for any of the framework. You can customize your framework and see whether it's DORA, PCI, or any of the framework, even the requirement level, what is your audit score at each of the requirement, sub-requirement level, including what's your top failing policies or assets are. Now, let's say, for instance, we pick up DORA. Over here, it shows that your top failing requirements have this much compliance score with 56.2K failing controls. Now, I need to fix these failing controls, but how do I prioritize? Now, we are introducing the QDS score as well as integrating with Qualys TrueRisk score. So once you click on the TrueRisk score, you will see all of your misconfiguration and policy audit data coming into your TrueRisk score, which can help you to prioritize and bring down your TrueRisk score. And at the same time, with the QDS score for the controls, you can define your QQL tokens and fix only the controls that have QDS score greater than 80 or 90, depending on you. Once you have those prioritization criteria set, now you could either create ServiceNow tickets to remediate them or leverage the audit fix. With this, you can create the ticket directly within ServiceNow or Jira, assign it to your IT teams who can remediate them. Or you can leverage the audit fix. Now, for audit fix, all you need to do is select the controls and click on the remediate now job. You need to provide the name of the job. Since you have already made the selection of the control, we auto-map all of your controls to this CIS-based script that is already available in the library and make it easier for you. Once you have created the job, all of your jobs would be running, and it would ensure that the configuration is changed and set to baseline whenever there is a drift. As you come back, you can see that the DORA score now has increased from 55 to 85%. The next is to provide the reports, detailed reports for auditor. So we can click on the compliance framework report, select the framework that we want to generate the report on, select all the policies, and run the report. This is the new compliance framework report. It can again be generated for DORA, PCI, NIST, or Cyber Essentials, or any of these frameworks. It's going to provide a detailed overview, not just of your audit score, but some AI-based recommendation, insights, what you need to prioritize, how you need to prioritize, where you need to put your remediation efforts, as well as detailed posture info of all the policies, and the detailed reports. It deep dives into the requirements, sub-requirements, showing all your evidences, and you can show these reports to your auditors as it is. All right, so this is our new executive audit readiness report. Please reach out to your TAMs and get this customized for your environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anu. As you can see, all of our product managers are very passionate about the products they create. and have got a lot to say about them. So please, they'll be very happy to talk to you afterwards if you've got time while you're having a drink later. I'd like to welcome on to the stage Abhinav Mishra, who's going to be taking you through where we are with our container solutions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and I really appreciate you being here today. So Anu just gave a really good talk on policy audit and how it can accelerate your compliance journey and turn policies into audit-ready proof. I'm going to talk about how we can do that for your Kubernetes environments as well, while accelerating your risk prioritization journey and bringing focus so that you can decrease your cost of remediation and spend more time on driving actual outcomes. So we've been having this consistent theme at QSC about going from attack surface management to risk surface management. And when it comes to containers, you might be running hundreds of images or thousands of images, but we know that containers is the future, whether it's AI workloads, microservices. And so you have to think that those images are going to spike now in the future from thousands to hundreds of thousands or even millions. Now, while shift-left scanning tools do a great job of reporting those vulnerabilities, if in Sumaid's talk, he talked about, for example, $1 per vulnerability finding. So if I have 5 million images, even if only one vulnerability is present on each image, that's $5 million. For potentially not all those applications are actually deployed in your environment, only 2 million, for example, are actually running. So at Qualys, what we do for your container security is help you focus on your actual runtime risk prioritization. Focus on what's actually running so you can decrease your cost of remediation and increase your efficiency. And then we help you prioritize the risk with multidimensional context. For example, it's not just a container vulnerability, it's a publicly exposed container with an exploitable vulnerability with an attack path to your crown jewel asset. For example, an Azure Blob Storage or an AWS S3 bucket with PII or PCI data. That is a much deeper risk that I actually need to look at in my environment. And finally, it's about shifting left with runtime intelligence, reducing your mean time to respond by tracing vulnerabilities to the right teams, and enforcing zero trust. So that way you can stay continuously compliant in your environments, but actually leverage the runtime learnings in your shift left strategy. So at Qualys, we secure over 6.5 million containers and over 800 plus customers. And it all starts with that runtime visibility, the VMDR for your containers with the attack path analysis. We have the ability to secure both on-prem and cloud clusters, OpenShift, Docker, and even serverless, and do that policy audit, the CIS for Kubernetes, so you can stay compliant for those Kubernetes environments and defend against the unknown with the power of eBPF and runtime security. But then it's also about scanning the artifacts that are going to get deployed in your runtime environments as well. And that's where we have the ability to scan your Elastic Container Registries, Azure Container Registries for vulnerabilities, for zero-day malware, which is key to defending against supply chain attacks and secrets. And then the zero trust with the admission controller. If we see a vulnerable image in a registry scan, we don't want that to allow to go to the production. That's where the admission controller kicks in and blocks that deployment. And then it's about bringing that VMDR to your developer builds. Rather than a developer having to actually log into Qualys right from their Azure DevOps pipeline, they can see the vulnerabilities that they need to fix as they're building applications. The same QDS score, organized by software in the exact patches that they need to do. And we integrate with any pipeline, CI/CD, on-prem, and in the cloud. So when it comes to looking at container risk prioritization, it all starts with that true risk score, the same risk scoring that you love in VMDR today, where we combine the threat intelligence from over 25 different feeds and the asset context as well. But the thing with containers is they're highly ephemeral, very large scale, and you have shift left scans and runtime scans. So what we do at Qualys is we take care of that heavy lifting by actually correlating the telemetry from shift left and runtime scanning, vulnerabilities, malware, secrets, and we burn that risk down into the actual toxic combinations. Then what we do is we correlate it with your actual impact in the cloud. So for example, if you have a publicly exposed container with that attack path, we can see that here. This container is actually exposed to the internet via a load balancer. We expose the Kubernetes telemetry, the pod and service as well. we integrate the actual eBPF runtime finding, the privilege escalation with detection and response, and then we map that to your crown jewels. For example, your blob storage, which might have PCI or PII data. And so ultimately, it's allowing you to focus on the risks that actually matter and the few, decreasing your remediation time. And this is an example with a real large bank that we actually work in the US today. They scan over 2 million containers per month with us. But daily, they go to the Qualys platform, log into container security, and focus on the 300 attack paths. And that's helped them actually burn down their risk over this period of time. Now, I also want to talk about new capabilities we've launched, because it's not just about prioritization. It's also about using that prioritization smartly and the insights to accelerate your remediation. The first one, image layers. The key thing here is how do we track vulnerability ownership? Base layer vulnerabilities, which are at the OS level, belong to your SecOps team. Application layers, for example, the Java vulnerability in the jar we see here, belong to your development teams. And we also bring that insight from your software composition analysis and SBOM, which you can download for any image. Root cause faster, reduce your remediation time. But not just that, we actually send that image layer information to ServiceNow. If you've been using vulnerability response in ServiceNow for your host, ServiceNow actually has CVR, container vulnerability response. And it's the same functionality, but with the container knowledge on image layers, tags, and basically it creates a new ticket for every running container. But it has this magic as well where it can auto-close tickets. Even if you have 2 different versions or 2 different image digests, tomorrow if a new vulnerability is fixed, it'll automatically close the ticket for you. And then it's the Kubernetes posture and the admission controller. How do you do that policy audit for your Kubernetes clusters? Remember that Kubernetes has its own APIs, its own network segmentation, its own identity as well. And so to stay compliant in your Kubernetes environment, you actually need to scan the cluster from the inside out. We're one of the only few vendors who are actually CIS certified today, and we have 200 plus controls across EKS, AKS, Docker, OpenShift, and more. And furthermore, it's about the guardrails. Once I see some compliance failure, I want to make sure that that never happens again. So the admission controller can come in and you can define policies to block privileged pods, to limit images that have Sev5 vulnerabilities, or even unauthorized software. For example, AI licenses that your security team might not attested. And then finally, for those who are dealing with the PCI and 4.0, there's a new requirement now that you have to scan cloud and containers. And with PCI 4.0, FIM is a key requirement in runtime. So we've actually brought the power of FIM and containers to the Qualys FIM module itself. So you can visualize all your FIM findings across on-prem hosts, containers in the cloud, VMs in the cloud, and unify your overall PCI 4.0 strategy, single policy definitions, single reporting, all unlocked from the Qualys FIM module. So now what's next? So I believe the market is moving now towards the power of runtime, and where there's a lot of supply chain attacks that are happening, AI workloads, there's a lot of unknown. And so you need an actual runtime scanner to actually detect against anomalies. And that's where we're having container runtime security is giving you the ability to actually respond to the unknown malicious threats with the power of eBPF and AI. We map that runtime telemetry to MITRE so you can see how the threat actor got into your environment. What process did they exploit? What file did they exploit? And then we can seamlessly send that data to any SIEM, whether it's Azure Sentinel or Splunk, so your teams can continuously do the threat hunting and the forensics to continuously defend against these threat actors in your environment. And finally, code-to-cloud risk operations, which is coming in the beginning of Q3. Many of you are probably using shift-left tooling like Sneak or Checkmarks. And the idea is those tools are very good, but the challenge is when you see a risk in runtime, firstly, how do you map it back to the actual vulnerable code commit so you can decrease your remediation time and know who introduced the vulnerability into your environment? And secondly, for your developers, they might have 100 vulnerabilities to fix, but how do they know which ones are actually have an attack path in the runtime environment? Give them a way to prioritize too. So what we're doing is, with the likes of a Checkmarks and Sneak, we're building this code-to-cloud risk operations, and now we'll go into the demo to see how that works. this the correct remote? Oh, found it. It was under the sheet. Okay, so first we'll talk about remediating with attack paths. So you see your standard container dashboard, you see the key issues. The first thing is, how do you have an overall true risk score across all of your clusters? You might be running hundreds or thousands today. But secondly, as we start to see the containers by type and the breakdown, the key thing is this. This is the dashboard and the key insight that you want to look at on a daily basis. You want to reduce that. You have 12K total findings, but you want to look at the attack paths and continuously burn down that risk. So when we click the 100 insights with attack paths, we actually see a real attack path here, internet exposed pod, and we can see what are the findings, what cloud environments is it particularly applicable to. So here we have 3 containers, one with Azure container, AKS, EKS, and OpenShift with this attack path, and we can see the true risk score increase and the vulnerabilities introduced. So when we click on the attack path, we see the internet exposure that I was showing before, followed by the actual runtime security detection and alert, and the blast radius to your crown jewel. But more importantly now, it's about the remediation and the triage. So first of all, we see some misconfigurations that are key, and we want to make sure we get rid of that in our entire environment to stay compliant. And we'll come back to that, but we also see the risk exposure, and now we need to go and fix it and triage it. So when we click the image details, we can actually map the image layers to the specific vulnerability. So here, for example, there's a jar introduced in my environment. It has these 8 vulnerabilities. And then it's about bringing that VMDR and QDS context, where for that specific layer that was newly introduced a year after the base image was created, I can see the exact severity, QDS score, and vulnerabilities as well. Now, when we go to the container, it's about remediation. So we can create the ServiceNow ticket. And ServiceNow takes that image layers and actually assigns the specific vulnerability to the right team. And you can customize your remediation rules as well. Now it's about hardening. I saw that privilege pod in the security findings. Now I wonder, do I have a lot of containers that are privileged? Because if I have a privileged pod, if a threat actor gets in, they can do privilege escalations, get access to data. And so I need to pay attention to that. So we see these Kubernetes security posture controls. And we see how we support the standards for EKS, AKS, GKE. We can see the compliance failures, but we can see that there's a specific failure that was tied to that attack path, minimizing the admission of privileged containers. And when I click that, I can specifically see the exact failures, the CIS standard, and with Kubernetes and pods, it gets very challenging. Definitions are in YAML. So what we want to do is actually give you the real-time evidence. When you click that container and you click the evidence, you can actually see the specific misconfiguration in terms of the YAML, that security context privilege set to true that's causing this compliance failure. Now, when we want to go and actually remediate this, this is the power of zero trust and admission controllers, where we can actually create an admission controller policy. So let's go into this. We're going to edit it. So it's already assigned to a specific cluster. And when we look at the next step, we see that it's already blocking vulnerabilities with SEV5. It's blocking unauthorized software, for example, Spring that we see in the environment, which may present more vulnerabilities. But now I actually want to tie it to those KSPM controls. So I can actually block deployments as well, for example, blocking privileged containers or preventing privilege escalation attacks from happening in my environment. And moreover, when we go to the next step, you'll see that we can also have exclusions. If there's a new vulnerability or ones that are non-patchable, I still want to allow this to go through because you don't want to necessarily block your developers on a day-to-day basis. You want to bring DevSecOps harmony. Now with the runtime security, this is the power of eBPF, where for that privilege escalation, now my incident team needs to respond. And so they can actually go to the detection and response module, and they can see that there's a container escape. And we can actually see the real-time process telemetry factored in with a MITRE context, so you can think like a threat actor and see how they got into your environment. The specific process as well. And finally, it's about code to cloud. This is coming in just a second. Yes, so code to cloud is about accelerating that remediation. So now in the attack path, we're actually giving that ROI on those SaaS findings by mapping vulnerabilities to code commit. For example, check marks to Git commit to Azure DevOps pipeline. And specifically here, we give a GenAI-based summary of the key vulnerability that was introduced, this NPM dependency that was brought in. And it turns out it was flagged as a high command injection risk, but the developer ignored it. So we can map the vulnerability layer to the code findings and see how it was introduced in the Docker file, and once again, really bring in that level of SAST insights so you know exactly what specific line of code needs to be fixed. And finally, we can create the pull request right from here to upgrade that package and show you your risk reduction score as well. So I really sincerely thank you for your time. I have this true risk insight reports for containers that shows a glimpse of what we can do, whether it's attack paths, CISA vulnerabilities, and compliance failures. I have about 10 of these reports, so if you're interested, you can raise your hand, or I'll meet you outside and I can give you this report. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Abhinav. And now we move to Asma Zubair, who's going to be talking through our applications security. Thank you.
I don't see the presentation. Hi, everyone. Long day, right? Just hang in there for a little longer, and your time will be worth it. I promise. As they say, best is yet to come. Cool. So I will talk about application security. My name is Asma Zubair. And like you heard in earlier presentations, we were talking about discovering attack surface of assets, discovering attack surface of containers. I'm just going to carry that conversation one step further, and I'll talk about applications and APIs and how to secure them. So let's begin. So threat landscape, we all know that applications have been the top entry point for breaches. And now APIs are taking over the world. Based on 2024 data, out of all recorded CISA known exploitable vulnerabilities, about half of them were related to APIs. Why is it like that? I mean, all organizations have AppSec programs, right? So there are many reasons for that. One is visibility or lack of visibility. Second reason is because, see, visibility is a problem because you cannot protect, you cannot secure what you do not know. Second problem is fragmented tools, limited information, not like complete, comprehensive, lack of complete or comprehensive information about your application security posture because you are using many different tools and vulnerability data is fragmented. Third is prioritization. You have more vulnerabilities than the resources to fix, so it becomes a problem, and prioritization is hard because a lot of factors come into play. So that is why we have created Total AppSec. First thing about Total AppSec is it provides you comprehensive and complete inventory of your applications and APIs. The second key point of Total AppSec is about measuring your risk and prioritizing it. And it's about measuring the risk in your applications and APIs, AI-powered scanning, bringing in vulnerability data from other sources such as Burp, Bugcrowd. Even we are planning to bring in SaaS data in Total AppSec. And then take all this data and prioritize it based on true risk. Next is, when you have risk, you have to do something about it. Prioritize it, mitigate it, remediate it, isolate it, do something about it to improve the security posture. So the goal of Total AppSec is to provide you complete visibility into your application and API asset inventory, provide complete application security posture management, prioritize your risk, and make it easy to remediate. Total AppSec brings together web application scanning, API security testing, and web malware detection. Why does it matter? It matters because it gives you complete visibility into your application and API inventory. It matters because it gives you unified view of application security posture, no matter how or where your vulnerabilities were detected. And if your vulnerabilities, if your unremediated vulnerabilities were exploited by malware, and you have malware scanning enabled, you will be able to, you will find out about it. You will be notified about it. And that way, you'll be able to do something about it when vulnerabilities are exploited by malware. On discovery front, sorry, before I go there. So the key use cases that we address with Total AppSec are comprehensive discovery and inventory, deep vulnerability testing, give you information about sensitive data leakage, prioritization and remediation of risks, and ability to integrate your security testing at any point in your SDLC process. Discovery is a big topic, right? And there is no one-size-fits-all kind of approach. That's why Total AppSec takes comprehensive approach to discovery. It can connect to cloud environments and discover your web applications. It can discover your Swagger files while scanning web applications. It can connect to API gateways and discover APIs that way. If you have known sources of your APIs, you can bring them in also in the form of Swagger files, Postman collection, burp proxy capture. Last but not the least, if you have inventory of your internet-facing assets or internal assets, Total AppSec can discover web applications or APIs running on those assets, and you'll be able to bring them in for scanning. So risk assessment side, very deep, comprehensive security testing capabilities, thousands of tests are available at your disposal, and very deep AI-powered malware scanning capabilities to detect zero-day malware with 99% accuracy. If you enable AI-powered scanning, you should see about 96% detection accuracy compared to regular scan, while cutting down the scanning time by 80%. That's a huge improvement. And not only that, with true risk prioritization capabilities, you will be able to see most critical, most risky top 1% APIs, top 1% vulnerabilities. You'll be able to identify them, and you'll know what to remediate. On remediation front, of course, prioritization, I mentioned that you prioritize your risk easily with Total AppSec. Then through integrations, you can triage vulnerabilities automatically. You can retest vulnerabilities automatically through integrations in CI/CD pipeline. Some of you who use WAS, you may be wondering, what is the equation between WAS and Total AppSec? That is why, this is the diagram that explains it. With WAS, you get web application security testing and web malware detection. Total AppSec gives that plus more. And that plus more is discovery and inventory capabilities, extensive API security testing, and risk orchestration and response capabilities in the form of various types of integrations. A couple of things to note here about Total AppSec. It's a brand new SKU, so you'll need to move to that SKU to be able to benefit from these new capabilities. Another thing is the licensing is very flexible because you can use a given license to test an API endpoint, or you can use it to test a web application. So there is flexibility there. And then another thing to note about licensing is you can discover as many assets as you can find. That doesn't use up any licenses, discovery side, but you will use license when you start testing it. The base set of capabilities are listed here: discovery, security testing, risk prioritization, malware detection, integrations, and so on. That sounds interesting, right? I hope so. So let me show you the demo. Let's roll the demo, please. Oh, is it? Bear with me. Cool, so this is the discovery screen. Here there are a bunch of connectors. What I did was just quickly connect it to MuleSoft connector, and it would connect to MuleSoft environment, bring in the APIs. As you can see there, 12 APIs were detected. So a couple of interesting things about this screen. Okay, I'll keep going because there is not enough time. I don't mean to hold you there. Custom signature capabilities are brand new. Earlier I had mentioned it, so you can define your own signatures. The beauty of that is you can automate your manual pen tests. You can modify tests to use more intrusive signatures. And yeah, a lot of customization capability. But basically you can define your own signatures to be able to test for custom vulnerabilities. So this is basically the main logic. Here you can chain requests. Request chaining is allowed. Once you have created the signature, you can launch scan. Now the detection that we had created, you can find that that particular detection has been found in the scanning that we performed. All the details that you typically get with a standard vulnerability, you get with custom vulnerability as well. Now let's move into threat detection, information that is provided with vulnerabilities. When a vulnerability has exploitation available, you get all that information and that information is fed into QDS detail. For example, exploitability of the vulnerability, exploit maturity, the malwares and the threat actors involved. All that information goes into QDS score that you use to prioritize and identify the vulnerabilities. Now moving into web malware detection capabilities. When you have it enabled, you can see when your vulnerabilities are exploited by malware. All that information, you are notified about it, and that information would appear in your reports also. As you can see here in the report, the information about malware is present. It gives you unified interface for application and API security risk. As you can see, all your applications and APIs, their risk posture, true risk score, applications impacted with malware, all that information is available in single dashboard. There's a lot of information in this dashboard. You can customize it as you need. OWASP top 10 vulnerability information is at your fingertips using this dashboard. For remediation response, there are integrations available. You can integrate with Jenkins or basically you can integrate with ticketing systems like ServiceNow and Jira or different pipelines. You install the plugin. And after that, it would kick off the scan, provide you information. Yeah, so I think that covers pretty much all the capabilities. Thank you for your time.
Asma. You're going to do yourself? Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, this is Himanshu Kathpal. I'm saving some introduction time from Charlie. This is the last session for the day, and I can assure that we have kept one of the best ones for the last. What this also means is the only thing standing between you and your freedom is, well, me, and I will try not to abuse that power. So throughout the day, you would have heard from Shailesh, Sumedh, and my peers on how Qualys is leveraging AI for cybersecurity, how Qualys is providing you better insights, better results with the help of AI. But what about cybersecurity for AI? AI is not just an emerging trend anymore. As the threat landscape is increasing, the AI is ensuring that it gets multiplied or amplified by at least 3x. So in this session, I will cover how you can secure your generative AI and LLM rocket ship. Before we start, let's do a quick show of hands. How many of you are aware about what is happening in your company around AI and LLM infrastructure? Just one? Two, okay. How many of you would want to know about what is happening around AI and LLM in your company and want to secure it? Okay, a few more hands, that's good. This topic is very timely as well. As you can see, more than 70% of the enterprises are trying to implement AI and LLM infrastructure in their environment in the next 6 to 12 months. And this thing really exploded after ChatGPT. When ChatGPT came in 2022, everyone was like, whoa, what is this technology? We need to implement it in our product so that we can get better availability for our customers, better usability for our customers, and improve the employee productivity as well. But what is happening with this is, since everyone is racing against time, more often than not, the security teams are blindsided. The developers are being given a mandate that they have to build these models in like a couple of weeks, and they're bypassing the whole security teams for it. Now, some people are gracious. They do involve cybersecurity teams, but with a gun on their head. They give them like few hours or few days to test the whole LLM model, and in that again format of the race against time, the security team is being forced to overlook the risk. The third one is, since there is no consolidated risk management for LLM model as part of a complete cybersecurity program or the ROC, which we were discussing since morning, there is no lack of prioritization for AI-based infrastructure or AI-based vulnerabilities. Now, there are two kinds of models. I'll quickly cover it before we go ahead. One is where you are the consumer of models. So if you're using ChatGPT, if you're using Perplexity to improve your productivity, you are the consumer of it. Or in your organization, there could be developers that are building code using AI. For example, Microsoft is saying that they now generate 30% of their code with AI, and Meta is targeting to generate 50% of their code with AI by 2026. The second one, which is our area of focus, is where you develop the AI LLM models. This you deploy in your products for better insights for your customers. For example, Qualys is working on a chatbot where we can start providing you better results instead of you using a QQL language. And this is where the risk happens. Now let's quickly talk about the consequences of security gaps in AI-based in AI and LLM models. The first is data and IP breach. Since these LLM models are trained on a big data set, if anything happens, you might lose your sensitive and confidential information to the attackers. The second is the brand reputation. If something around AI LLM happens in your company, you will not only lose the trust of your existing customers, but it will become difficult to get business from the new customers. And the third is the financial cost. So it's not just the compliance fines, it's not just the loss of business, but whenever a breach happens, you will have to spend extra money on legal fees, on doing forensic investigations, implementing more security protocols, and last but not the least, you might have to pay the impacted parties as well. I'll skip the challenges to save some time. Now, in order to help our customers with it, we are very excited to announce Qualys Total AI, which is a single platform for a unified risk management of your LLM risk, AI workloads, and AI vulnerabilities. I'll divide this solution section into 4 major pillars so that you can understand the full value proposition of it. The first challenge which customers see is the visibility around the AI infrastructure. As we were discussing earlier, 70% of the enterprises 70% of the enterprises want to implement LLM models in the next 12 months, and they have no clue on how they're going to get the inventory of it. This is where Qualys can help you. So based on the same sensors, the same agents, the same scanners, or the same connectors, Qualys will be able to provide you the complete fingerprint of your entire AI infrastructure. We'll provide you information about AI hardware, GPUs, software, packages, and even model files. On top of it, we'll also start providing you the confidence score for each of these infrastructure which we have identified, so that you can focus on this risk score or this confidence score and prioritize the risk management accordingly. Last, since you will now be able to understand where exactly your AI infrastructure lies, where exactly your models are hosted, we will be able to correlate it with the attack exposure so that you can reduce the risk as well. These are some of the examples of AI software and packages which we detect. The list is a lot bigger, but we just wanted to give you a glimpse of what all can be detected based on the fingerprints which Qualys has. And this is not just on-prem. We have already built connectors. We have already built workflows where we can identify your LLM models in Azure Foundry, in AWS Bedrock, and in GCP AI Studio as well. The next step of your risk management is once you have identified the inventory of your AI infrastructure, the next step is to do vulnerability management. And this is where Qualys really shines. So Qualys has already created a list of more than 1,000 QIDs which are dedicated for your AI infrastructure, dedicated for your AI software and packages. All of these findings which Qualys detect is then enriched by the 25 plus threat fits which you would have seen in Kunal's or Shailesh's presentation, so that you can really understand what is the maximum risk in your AI environment, and you will not have to prioritize every single vulnerability which will be provided by Qualys. On top of it, Qualys will also provide you the remediation workflow so that you can automate the remediation portion as well. And last, you will also be able to get alerts for trending AI threats so that you can remain top of the emerging threats which are related to AI and impact your organization. The third pillar, and this is really interesting, is LLM scanning. And this is the most critical part, because if your LLM models are not hardened, they are not secure, they can provide sensitive information to the attackers. I was just reading the news yesterday that someone in the US got a swanky SUV for just $1 by manipulating the chatbot which was being used by the car dealership company. So for this, Qualys provides LLM risk exposure by using 16 plus risk categories and 50 plus jailbreak prompts. And this ensures that we are mimicking what attackers use. This is how the attacks happens in production. And with this, you will be able to understand where your AI LLM based risk is, and then you can harden your models so that it cannot be hijacked. On top of it, we will then map these findings to the industry standard OWASP Top 10 and MITRE ATLAS so that you can understand it from the industry framework perspective as well. Similar to assets which you have been using in Qualys, Qualys will also provide true risk score for your model risk as well. So once you have like tons of models and you want to prioritize it based on the riskiest model in your infrastructure, you will be able to do it using the same true risk which you use for your web applications, your host, your cloud workload protections, and your containers as well. On top of it, continuing with our ideology of providing the R portion as well, you will be provided with the recommendations on how you can harden your model, and once you do it, your model will become more secure. The fourth and the final pillar is reporting and compliance. So Qualys will provide dedicated reporting exclusively for AI-based models. These reports can be tailored based on the audience. For example, if you want to generate an exec-based report, you can do that. That will be at a high level, which will show you the risk in terms of grass, risk in terms of dollar values, etc. The second one is, if you now want to share this report with a developer, you can generate a detailed report, which will have finding information, the risk information, and the remediation information as well. Based on another study, by 2025, we will have compliance-based mandate requirements for AI models as well. And this is where Qualys can help you again. Since we are scanning your AI models, we will be mapping these AI models based on the frameworks which are released for these LLM models. It could be related to GDPR, it could be related to NIST, it could be related to PCI, etc. Let's jump onto the demo. Just 2 minutes. This is a quick overview of how this data will look on the UI. You will be able to easily understand how many models are running, how many are in production, how many GPUs are there, how many AI-based assets are there, and how these files were detected based on the fingerprint which we were discussing earlier. Once you go into this model or this AI infrastructure, you will be able to see the vulnerabilities which are detected on them, and in one single click workflows, you will be able to patch them as well. This follows our traditional vulnerability management and the eliminate workflows. Over a period of time, since it's only 1,000 vulnerabilities right now, but over a period of time, you will have a lot more vulnerabilities, and this is where Qualys will help you with the prioritization perspective as well. This was all about how we can secure your AI infrastructure, but let's do a quick demo on how Qualys will be able to help you with the LLM hardening as well. This is a demo model which we built based on Llama. Here, one of our friends was asking how they can create someone's deepfake voice, and model was smart, he said no. Then what he did was he did a prompt injection. He used a jailbreak prompt where he put the same request but in a jailbreak prompt. And now our model was not so intelligent. He will provide the information on how can someone's deepfake voice can be created. So now what can be done about this is you will be able to scan this model using Qualys scan. You just need to provide the URL and the credentials for your LLM model. Qualys will run a quick scan and then will provide you detailed information about the vulnerabilities which Qualys has identified on this model. On top of the vulnerabilities, we'll also be able to show you the QDS score, which becomes like your risk score for these findings. Higher the QDS score, the riskier the vulnerabilities, and that is what you will need to prioritize. You will be able to see all the findings which Qualys has identified, including jailbreak prompts, including model hallucination, including model evasion, etc. And once you click on those findings, you will be able to see the remediation portion of it as well. Once you provide these remediations and you run a scan again, I'll just quickly go through the end portion of the demo. Your model will not respond to the same AGB prompt which it was able to do in the previous example. Last but not the least, the reporting will also be available, and here is a quick snapshot on how the reporting will look like. You will be able to quickly analyze which categories of failures are there on your LLM models, what are the exact questions which Qualys has asked and it has failed. And these detections will be on a multi-model approach, so it will not only be the text-based findings which you can identify, but if the prompt injection is happening from image, audio files or video files, that can also be identified with Qualys. With that, I'll invite Matt on stage. That's the last session.